What started my journey in silvopasture was probably Mike Gold from the University of Missouri. We started talking about trees and we started talking about row crops and cover crops. And he mentioned the idea of potentially doing alley cropping and making a lot more money per acre. So of course that piqued my interest a little bit. My name is Josh Payne. I live in Concordia, Missouri. This is a family farm that we've farmed since 1950. So this property was conventionally farmed up until about 3 years ago. It was a lot of tillage, a corn-soy rotation. It was very good for my grandpa. As I went to conferences, a lot of people were talking about soil health, and I started researching, and you start to hear about the principles that the NRCS puts out. You know, you're planting diversity, and you're having a continuous living root in the ground. So I got to know my local NRCS people through cover crops, actually. We worked through the state cost share. So then we started and we did a big project out here. Right behind us, we're looking at hazelnuts. Those are gonna be about 15 feet tall in the future. They were planted in 2019, which makes them 2.5 years old. The chestnuts off to my right over here, they're planted at the same time. And then off on our left, there's a silvopasture that I planted from seedlings. Like it's a straight silvopasture. They were all planted within 6 months of each other. Actually, one of the reasons that I got started in soil health was because right out over here, my grandfather and I were in a shed and we had like a 4-inch rain over the course of about 30 minutes. And we literally watched these terraces just break over. And we've had several large rain events, but I think what I'm seeing in all the places where the terraces are designed to pull water away, like because they have the living roots in the ground with the grass and with the trees, like that soil's staying there. That's one of the more immediate benefits that I see. This is a big change. This is a daunting challenge to take a row crop field and turn it into an alley cropping situation that is going to pay off over 10 years instead of like just that year. So it's scary, but the nice thing is there's people around who've done it. Like there's technical expertise. There's people at the NRCS office who can walk you through that.
Can we take a closer look out here?
Yeah. The nice thing in this alley cropping setup, we lost about 10% of our ground. So if we had 30 acres, we lost 3 acres, and we still farmed about 27 acres in here. So the EQIP got us started, it got us started financially, and then we were able to farm in between here until we changed our operation. Well, NRCS paid for 70% of the chestnut and hazelnut and silvopasture planting. And I think that's where like the EQIP really helped us out, because it provided that initial startup. Very few people can like afford to take something out of production and then to plant, say, $20,000 worth of trees that you're not going to make any income off of for 10 years, right? I think the great thing about, say, chestnuts, just to make a plug for chestnuts in our area, you can direct market them or you can wholesale them. These are 3-year-old grafted trees, which means they're significantly older than just a 3-year-old seedling would be. So we're starting to see actually some small harvests in there. This last year, we probably picked up 100 pounds of chestnuts already from those trees. So,
Did you eat all of them?
We did.
Awesome.
Well, I don't know if I did. Our kids do. Our kids love them for breakfast.
No kidding.
Yeah, we cook them on like a cast iron skillet, and I'll score them, and we cook them, and they're like, "Can we have chestnuts?" And it's always a sad day when we're out. So
that's pretty neat.
So the way I describe my farm background growing up until I was about 16, I picked up sticks and rocks. And it's about all there is to do for a 10 or 11-year-old boy on a farm, right? And they'd send me out there to go pick up sticks and rocks. And, I could sit in a tractor for a while, but it wasn't super intellectually stimulating for me. Like the nice thing is, like our kids, like they're 10, 7, and 4 now. So like they helped us plant every one of these trees. Like the kids are able to get involved in a way that I hope captures their imagination. They like to pick up chestnuts already. They like to help me mulch. I think they're crazy or something, but that's the other thing. So we kind of chose, if you look in here, you can see one of the sheep got this one, and we'll come back here in a week or so and straighten all this stuff up in the summer. But so we chose the wood chip route. Like you can have a chemical weed control around here. So what we actually did was we used an old gravity wagon from our row crop operation. Mm-hmm. We filled it with a bucket loader. And we just go with an old rake that we found from my grandpa, kind of a curved tine rake, and we pull it out. And so we have 500 trees here, and we can do it all in one day. My grandpa's 92. He drives the truck. I go through and I pull out mulch, and then the kids come back through and they make it look pretty.
Cool.
So
they did a nice job of mulching, nice and deep. You got to have pretty deep coverage to actually suppress weeds, and they've done that.
So now the first year we used old seed sacks. Like on all those, we used old seed sacks, stuck those down around the tree and put mulch on top. So the plan is to come back, stick a seed sack on top, pull this up, stick a seed sack on top, and then mulch on top of that again in a week or so.
I think that's a pretty good idea, because the mulch, unless you've got a way of controlling that vegetation that's already there, some of that stuff's going to come back up unless you really stay on top of it. Yeah, feed sacks sound like a pretty good approach. That's similar to just using the weed mat.
Yeah. But this is free.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Like the sheep just came through here, and I mean this would not work for cows.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
If I was going to do cows, I'd stick these along a fence line and kind of triangle out with high tensile wire or something like that. But they just came through here, and they're shedding right now, and they didn't knock very many of these over.
That's cool. How often do you move them typically?
No more than 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah, so you move them fast so that they don't have time to ingest the parasites, basically, right?
Right. Well, and
they're not getting down close.
They're not getting below 4 inches, because it's a lot of work to deworm 320 sheep and their 450 lambs. It just takes a lot of time. So I'd rather do a little bit of work every day with moving a couple days, every couple days.
Yeah.
So it's easy right now. Now in the winter, we'll really shut it down, and we move every day and just strip graze whatever winter annual that we have.
Gotcha.
This year it'll probably be Milo. So Milo with some other stuff in the mix. So the idea is that'll then grow up, and that'll be our winter stockpile.
Okay, gotcha. Let's walk through here and see if there's anything else to look at.
Yeah, sounds good. We're trying to plant and come up with an annual forage system in which we have something living as long as we possibly can. So this is a winter cereal. It was going to die in May, early June. We came in early May and we planted some corn, and we planted some soybeans, some summer stuff. So the winter stuff will be living. The summer stuff will also then be living and overlapping. And then this fall we'll turn back around after we graze it, and we'll come back with some kind of a winter mix too.
Good.
So
keeping it covered and keeping that living root out there.
And hopefully keeping it diverse too.
Yeah.
So we got a really nice graze out of this. We got about a $400 per acre graze out of this last fall. And then it grew back, and we got another $80, I think is what it was, graze. And then we got another $80 graze this spring. So we've got close to $600 worth of grazing out of this. So we had the cereal rice, some of the winter cereals. There's barley and there's wheat in here. You're also seeing
some brassicas too.
Yeah, you see some brassicas. Those were turnips, I think, that overwintered. Right here on Saturday, after they came through and grazed this, I planted right before rain. There's some soybeans, there's some faba beans, and there's going to be some sunflowers, and there's going to be some yellow clover in there. There's a little bit of corn, probably volunteer from last year.
Nice little crimson clover there in front of you.
Yeah.
Too.
So there's going to be a bunch of warm season annuals that we can either graze, or I hope it'll stay low enough that we can harvest the corn if we want to.
Okay.
What works really well in this situation is a cover crop scenario, because if we were going to plant soybeans in here, we did this a couple years ago. We had the trees in the fall, in August, or in actually probably September, October, after the corn came out. We followed that up with a cereal rye cover crop that we planted soybeans into the next May. And what's nice about that is, if you need to use a herbicide in that situation, you can use a herbicide early, maybe before this stuff is leafed out, and then you're not risking tree damage quite as much. And then if you've done the rye well, you can pretty much make it through the whole rest of the growing season on that soybean crop without a herbicide pass. Which is so if a farmer's going to do this and still do row crops and alley crops in between, that's an important thing.
Yeah.
So covers really pair well with that. I'm saving a lot of money that way too.
Yeah, and again, so figuring out ways for a conventional producer to be able to move into this sort of operation is it's good information to have.
We just built the system around our equipment. We still, You know, we still have a 45-foot boom sprayer that we can stick on a tractor if we want to. You know, there's like 30 feet in between here almost, and so we can pull a planter down in between here.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important thing to recognize is you can be flexible.
So I've got to put this net up over there, and then we can go open up the sheep. We do what we call sneak moves. Right now during lambing, we don't want them running because they'll lead the lambs. So we're gonna go and kind of look at them, open up a net, and then I'll come back tomorrow and they'll all be here. So
you're just selling lambs?
So we just wholesale lambs. And so we wholesale a lamb for 150 bucks at 60 pounds. So we have 200 acres and 320 ewes. Everybody says you could have 3 per acre. And if you have 3 per acre and they have 1.5, you're talking 4 lambs per acre at $150. That's $600 an acre. It's similar gross to $3 corn, which is not too far in the past. So similar gross per acre, but at the same time, like we figure we're spending, I think this last year I spent 60 bucks an acre, and that includes 2 big forage plantings.
Versus what?
500, yeah. So economics of sheep are really good. On 15 acres of milo this next year, I can overwinter like 500 ewes.
Cool.
I think what's really nice about sheep for like this operation or a row crop person, sheep happen in sync with forage. So if you turn a ram in December, they're lambing now. As you've got the spring flush, they're outside and it's kind of warm. And then what's nice is right when they're super high nutritional needs, they've got great forage. And so like they lambed end of April all the way through May and then they're done. Like, cause I think right now you figure like 5 pounds of dry matter per day. And in the winter you figure like 2. So they really fit well with kind of a natural progression. It's like it's snowing lambs out there. And they're so cute, aren't they? They're like the cutest things ever. So we had them on like a good winter cereal in October, November, right before we put the rams in. And so now this year we've got like more than half we've been counting that are having doubles, and we got several that have had triples. So it's like they're starting to express those good twin genes already, which is great, which means they're healthier. But every triplet we've ended up bottle feeding. So what we're doing, we've got the kids bottle feeding them, and they do it 3 times a day. We're going to tag them, and they're going to get to keep like the flock for the future.
Cool.
And then make the proceeds off of sales. And so, man, I'm like, I'm going to have to cap it at 50 because those kids can make like 15 grand a year. So.
Perfect.
Do you guys want to go get a couple and just run around out in the...
Sure. Can we finish feeding this one?
Sure. The black one's a boy, but they'll be tame when they're older. Like they'll come up to us and rub their heads, and they're the only ones that will. So.
Boy, you couldn't ask for better imagery here. Good grief.
So what I like to see from this place in the next couple of years is well-managed grazing that can help reduce cost of mowing and maintenance in the chestnut trees, but can also make about as much money per acre as the row crops that I was doing were. So this last year we got close to $600 worth of grazing per acre on the 30 acres with the input cost of about $60 per acre. So that's a really nice profit return in the meantime, and that's before the chestnuts are starting to come in. So that's kind of the first step. But then what I really hope is I hope that some other people can join our farm. Some people who may want to do some vegetables, and they can go in between the trees and we can find spots and niches for them where they can then grow an acre of vegetables or a half acre of vegetables, or elderberries or something like that in between the rows. Again, just another way for more people to make a living on the farm. I think it's a great way to make a living. And what I'm hoping is that in 10 years, that when the chestnuts become profitable, when the chestnuts go into production, I'm hoping that that'll provide the salary on 30 acres for 3 of my kids to be here on the farm. If Raina wants to farm, she can do that, but we'd have to pick up 1,000 acres. But that comes at the expense of someone else. That comes at the expense of a neighbor. And so for me, this is just a different way of going about it. It's a different way of making more money on these acres so that my kids here can be involved.